forest was a blur of green and brown. Sonic the Hedgehog was running. But this was not his usual joyful run. There was no cocky smile on his face. This was a run born from pure terror. His friends were right behind him. Knuckles, with his powerful fists, looked scared. Cream the rabbit was crying as she flew, with Cheese chirping in panic beside her. They were all running from something monstrous. They were running from their friend, or what used to be their friend. The air was cold, and every snap twig sounded like a monster catching up to them. They didn't dare to look back. Looking back meant seeing the thing that was hunting them. This nightmare started in Green Hill Zone. It was supposed to be a normal day, but then they found him. Tails. His fur was dark and matted. His eyes were black pits with glowing red dots. He wasn't the sweet genius fox they all knew and loved. He called himself Tails X, and he wanted to play a game. A sick, twisted game of hide-and-seek where the prize for being found was a fate worse than death. So they ran. They ran as fast as they could, leaving their once happy world behind. The cheerful music of Green Hill was replaced by a distorted slow-motion dirge that seemed to follow them everywhere they went. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every gust of wind sounded like his chilling laughter. Sonic pushed himself to go faster, urging his friends to keep up. "Don't stop! Whatever you do, don't stop!" he shouted over his shoulder. The fear in his voice was something none of them had ever heard before. It wasn't the confident hero talking, it was just Sonic, a friend terrified of losing his other friends. They had to get away. They had to find a place to hide, a place to think. But Tails X was always one step behind them, a relentless predator enjoying the chase. The forest seemed to have no end, a labyrinth designed by a corrupted mind. Suddenly, a scream cut through the air. It was Amy Rose. Her foot had caught on a thick tree root, sending her tumbling to the ground. "Amy!" Sonic yelled, skidding to a halt. Knuckles and Cream stopped too, their eyes wide with horror. Amy tried to get up, her ankle twisted and in pain. The happy pink hedgehog looked up at her friends with desperation in her eyes. But it wasn't her friends she saw behind them. It was him. Standing there, just at the edge of the clearing, was the dark, twisted form of Tails X. A wide, stitched grin spread across his face as he floated silently towards his fallen prey. Time seemed to slow down. Tails X floated closer to the helpless Amy. He didn't run, he just drifted, a silent specter of doom. His two tails, once a symbol of his genius and flight, now swished behind him like monstrous appendages. The red lights in his black eyes seemed to burn with a cold, hateful fire. Sonic wanted to move, to dash forward and save Amy, but his feet felt like they were glued to the forest floor. He was the fastest thing alive. Yet in this moment, he was frozen by a fear so profound it paralyzed him. Knuckles stood beside him, his knuckles white, ready to fight but unsure of what he was even fighting against. "Stay away from her!" Knuckles finally roared, taking a step forward. But Tails X didn't even look at him. His entire focus was on Amy, who was now trying to crawl backward, away from the approaching horror. The corrupted fox let out a low, static-filled chuckle that grated on their ears. It was a sound that didn't belong in their world. It was the sound of a broken program, of a corrupted soul. He raised a hand, and from his palm, a long, sharp spike of dark energy began to form. It pulsed with a malevolent purple light, humming with a power that felt ancient and evil. Amy screamed as Tails X lunged forward. It was too fast for anyone to react. The dark spike plunged into her shoulder. It wasn't a deep wound, just a puncture, but the effect was immediate and terrifying. A strange, dark energy, like black veins, began to spread from the wound across her skin. Amy cried out in pain, her body convulsing on the ground. Sonic and Knuckles could only watch in stunned silence. This wasn't just an attack. This was something else. This was a kind of poison, a corruption that was rewriting their friend from the inside out. They were witnessing a violation far worse than any physical injury. The dark energy enveloped Amy completely. Her bright pink quills began to lose their color, turning a dull, lifeless gray. Her green eyes, usually so full of life and hope, flickered and then went dark. For a moment, she lay perfectly still. The forest was eerily quiet. The only sound was the quiet sobbing of Cream, who was hiding behind a large tree. Sonic took a hesitant step forward. "Amy, are you okay?" he asked, his voice trembling. He hoped, he prayed, that she would just get up and be herself again. But he knew deep down that the friend he knew was already gone. The silence was broken by a low, guttural laugh. It came from Amy. She slowly pushed herself up from the ground, her movements stiff and unnatural, like a puppet being pulled by unseen strings. When she finally stood up, her head was tilted at an odd angle. The once vibrant Amy Rose was gone. In her place stood a chilling echo. Her dress was tattered and grey. Her skin was pale and the black veins of corruption were still visible. But the most horrifying change was her eyes. They were the same as his. Black, empty voids with tiny piercing red dots that stared right through them. She was Amy X. "Oh, Sonic, a new game has just begun," she said. Her voice was a distorted, glitchy version of her own, layered with a sinister echo that made Sonic's quills stand on end. She summoned her Pico Pico hammer, but it too had changed. It was now a dark, metallic weapon, covered in sharp spikes. She spun it in her hand with a terrifying grin, a mirror of the one worn by Tails, X, who floated silently behind her, watching his creation with pride. The group's terror doubled. They were not just facing one monster anymore. Now there were two. Two of their closest friends had been turned against them. Knuckles let out a cry of disbelief and anger. "Amy, snap out of it! This isn't you!" he shouted, preparing to charge, but Sonic quickly grabbed his arm, holding him back. "Don't, Knuckles, don't you see? It's too late for her!" Sonic yelled, his voice cracking with despair. He was looking at Amy, but all he could see was the same empty darkness that had consumed Tails. He saw the same malicious intent, the same twisted joy in their fear. This wasn't a rescue mission anymore. This was a fight for survival against those they once swore to protect. The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming. "Amy," X giggled, a sound that would haunt their nightmares forever. She took a step forward, dragging her spiked hammer along the ground, leaving a deep scratch in the dirt. "Don't you want to play with us, Knuckles? It'll be so much fun," she cooed in her corrupted voice. "Tails!" X floated beside her, the two of them a terrifying pair, a twisted reflection of their former friendship. For Sonic, Knuckles, and Cream, the world had just become infinitely more dangerous. Their enemies now wore the faces of their friends, and the rules of the game had just become terrifyingly clear. Sonic's mind was racing, trying to process the horror unfolding before him. He saw the wound on Amy's shoulder, the point of impact from the spike. He remembered how the darkness had spread from that single point. He looked at Tails. X, the original source of this nightmare. A terrible realization clicked into place, a theory so dreadful he almost couldn't accept it. He finally understood the rules of this sick game. This wasn't just about hunting them down. It was about converting them, turning them into monsters just like him. It was a curse, a virus that spread through injury. "That's it," Sonic whispered, his eyes wide with dawning horror. "Any of us who gets hurt by them becomes one of them." He looked at Knuckles, then at Cream. The implication was clear. They couldn't fight back. A single scratch, a single hit from Tails. X or the newly created Amy. X, and they would be lost forever. Their greatest strengths, Sonic's speed, Knuckles' power, were now useless. To engage in combat was to guarantee their own corruption. Their only weapon, their only hope for survival, was to run and to hide. To fight was to lose in the worst way imaginable. "What are you saying, Sonic?" Knuckles asked, confused and angry. "We can't just let them do this. We have to fight." But Sonic shook his head desperately. "No, we can't. That's what they want. Listen to me, Knuckles. We have to go. Now!" The urgency in Sonic's voice finally broke through Knuckles' rage. He looked at the two corrupted figures slowly advancing on them, their red eyes glowing in the gloom. He looked at the terrified Cream, who was shaking uncontrollably. For the first time, the guardian of the Master Emerald understood that some battles cannot be won with fists. With a final pained look at the thing that used to be Amy, Sonic grabbed Cream and turned to run. "This way, and don't look back!" he yelled to Knuckles. They plunged deeper into the dark woods, their hearts pounding with a new kind of fear. It was no longer just the fear of being caught, but the fear of being turned. Behind them, the glitched laughter of Tails, X and Amy. X echoed through the trees, a chilling promise of the hunt to come. They knew they were not just running for their lives anymore. They were running to save their very souls, hiding in the shadows as their only chance to see another sunrise.